Hi, my name is Ali. I love to talk about knitting. It's one of my favorite hobbies, so let's dive right in. Now, it's been a while since I've posted last. I usually try to post like once a month or whenever I have a finished object, but after finishing one finished object, I just wanted to keep going along because there's so many projects to finish. So I'm going to kick off this podcast with what I'm wearing, which is also my only finished object for this podcast episode. This is the Olga sweater by Petite Knit. I'm sure all of you, especially those that have been knitting for a while now, if you've been dabbling into more Petite Knit patterns, this has probably been all over your algorithm. It was a painful journey getting here. And it all began because I didn't take my gauge swatch properly. Love that for me. I used Sandisgarn Pure Gint. And I did hit gauge when it came to the stitch gauge, but the row gauge, I was off by maybe like 2 rows. And at the time I was like, what's 2 rows? Who cares? It's gonna be a beautiful Olga sweater. I had originally finished the first version of my Olga right before Valentine's Day. I bound it off, blocked it, did the whole shebang. I put it on. It's way too cropped. I was ready to throw it down the garbage. After all the work I did, I really hyped up the sweater. I don't know if other people like hype up the Olga in their heads. You're thinking like it's gonna be beautiful, it's gonna be loose, you're gonna look like a really cool girl walking down the streets with your brand new Olga. I had all these visions. I was so ready to wear this Olga. I put it on, it's cropped. And on top of that, I ran out of yarn. I only had the light color left. I knew that this was going to be impossible. If you look at the pattern, you actually need more of the darker color. So I was very sad. I just knew that if I wanted to actually wear this sweater for the rest of my life, I would have to fix it. It meant lengthening the sleeves, lengthening the body, all that stuff. And I actually was ranting to the owner of Little Bow Fiber Company. I had visited her store and I told her like, hey, I'm looking for some pure Gint because my Olga sweater is way too cropped. She actually shared a tip with me, and maybe some of you already do this. I'm a relatively new knitter, so I never thought about this. She told me that when she picks a pattern and she figures out her size, she doesn't just base it on, let's say, the bust circumference or anything like that. She actually takes a look at one of her favorite sweaters, the ones that like fit her beautifully, and she uses those dimensions to dictate what size to wear and also kind of like to predict which size to make. And so I actually went back home and I grabbed my favorite sweater, or at least like a sweater that I just love the fit. And frankly, that was my very first Lakes V-neck pullover. I measured that and I was off by like 12 centimeters. So it was that cropped. I went ahead, I knew that I needed like about 10, 12 centimeters. I like counted the number of stripes and I figured like I would need at least 1 extra skein of each color. And then like I threw in an extra number of like, just an extra skein of the dark green because you never know. So I found like the only place online that could ship it. I try to do my best to support local yarn stores in Canada. So I found one that could ship it. I'll pop the name somewhere. Actually, let me check it right now. So my Olga is made of like yarn that I purchased from Needles in the Hay in Ontario, the Knitting Loft in Ontario, and also a twist of yarn, which is located in, where are they? Where are they located? Where are they? Located in Vernon, BC. Wow. Okay, to summarize, the Olga, because I have talked about it so much that I've lost track of time. And in fact, my own baby woke up and cried. He's okay now. He's back to sleep. But let's summarize my Olga experience. Number 1, I do enjoy the final product. I wear it a lot. I think I'm cool. At least in my eyes, I look cool. I love this version of me. Love that for myself. I have a unique sweater that most people do not have. At least it's not on like in the mall yet. Okay, cool. My yarn choice, do I love Pure Gint? Not necessarily. I wouldn't really knit with it again, I think. I would have to be convinced that it has to be pure Gint. I just find it a bit too itchy for me. What else? The pattern itself, I didn't really learn anything brand new other than how to knit stripes. And so I would imagine that if I make another Olga, I would be probably bored because I'm just really going through stockinette. Nothing wrong with that. Would I make more Olgas after saying all of that? Yes, I would. I just love stripes. I really do love the end product. I love all the color combinations you could do. With that being said, someone did say online, like technically you don't just have to stick to the Olga to make a striped sweater. You could really stripify any sweater out there. So that is true. So yes, I will make more despite this journey that I was on. Enough about the Olga. Let's talk about what I have been working on. Here are my whips. I'm going to start with a very boring one. I showed this in my last episode. I just wanted to give an update. I have one sock finished from that Drops Fable self-striping yarn. Good old 1x1 rib for the cuff. Self-striping yarn, like I said. And a good old heel flap in gusset, all in white. I believe this is Cascade Heritage. Not sure what the color is. I think the dopamine hit of the self-striping yarn kind of like finished in the first sock. And I was like, okay, now I know what it's gonna look like. And so I lost motivation. That's no bueno. I do keep this like project by my bedside table, or like if I'm out and my son and my husband are doing something together, like they've been going to swim classes together, I would pull this out because it's very easy to tuck into the tote bag, and like I would get to sit down at the community center bench, living my best life, really living the fantasy I've always had of being a mother, just having like a knitting project while my child does an extracurricular. But sometimes I just don't want to bring the sock around, despite how great and nimble of a project it is to bring around. So I haven't made much progress on it. Like literally I just have like the cuff and like the top part of the leg, which isn't even that long. So I don't know when I'm going to finish this. Winter is almost over where I live, so this might be a wool sock that I end up pulling out like next fall or winter. However, most of my time has been taken up by this sweater. This is the Wanaka sweater. I purchased this yarn from Melbourne, so I'm very excited that I actually ended up using it right away. I talked about that yarn in my video about like my Tokyo and Melbourne haul. I purchased it from Maker Maker, a really cool and lovely yarn store over in Melbourne. I believe it was in Brunswick, definitely not the CBD. So love that. It's also a yarn that is made, I think, in Australia. Why am I guessing when I have the tags? One sec. So it is made in Australia. It's 100% pure wool. It's heirloom merino fleck 8-ply in the shade 6550. I will put it all on a screen. Come on. So this is a DK weight sweater. I feel like I had been working on the sweater for so long, and I realize it's because it's DK weight and it's mostly stockinette, and because there's like no striping, it feels like I'm taking forever. Because one could argue that, here I go again talking about my Olga, pure Gint is also DK, but this one felt really fast. Meanwhile, this one took a while. So you'll notice that like I finished some other parts of it. It will be a sweater with like, it's almost like a Henley sweater. I will be putting buttons here at the front. I wanted something that was more casual. I did really love like this navy color, but I was looking at my wardrobe and I wasn't really in the mood for another piece that was like formal. I wanted another sweater that was a bit more casual, something that I could easily put over like a pair of jeans. And so I opted for this pattern that reminded me of like your boyfriend's Henley, that situation. I loved how loose it was from the photos that I saw on Ravelry. You'll notice that I have like the body started. Sleeves have not been started whatsoever, but I did jump to the collar, and there's like so many loose ends that I have to put in. So I finished the collar. It does involve a bit of like mattress stitching and whip stitching to finish like this double folded or folded collar down. I'm really just happy that I learned something new, like creating these button flaps and these buttonholes. I haven't made buttonholes for a sweater before, so that was really satisfying. It is a double knit button band here. So I am happy with all the things I've learned. I will make a confession. Okay, 2 confessions. I did not gauge swatch. I guess I didn't learn my lesson from the Olga. I'm just gonna YOLO. And I will face the consequences of that and report it back to you later. I don't know, guys. Sometimes I just want to have a project, I guess, and then I will cry later about it if it's a fail. But that is between me, myself and I, and perhaps my husband to emotionally support me during that crafting mistake. But that's okay. The second thing is there's a lot of rowing out, I will admit. Low key, I'm hoping I'm hoping this yarn will just bloom and somehow fix it. I'm not sure what caused it. I'm considering that maybe it's because I am using my wooden C-knit needles. I had mentioned before that I loved using my wooden needles because I felt like I didn't have to cramp up so much with my fingers. With wood, I could relax, and maybe that's why my tension's all over the place. I'm kind of just learning to go with the imperfections of every single sweater and just like enjoy it and enjoy the process. Maybe a year from now, I will be upset that I said this. I have like these phases where I'm more of like a product knitter versus like a process knitter. Right now, I guess I'm really leaning into the process knitting, but sometimes I'll pull up a sweater and be like, oh man, I should have taken more care. I should have been more meticulous. So we'll see. Regardless, here's my Wanaka sweater. I will not pull myself to a deadline on what episode I should be announcing that it's finished, but it's there. Okay, so for my final work in progress, I have something that I was supposed to work on last year, and I only got the courage to do it now. It's extremely out of my comfort zone, that's really why it took so long. So this is the Fishy Fish sweater by Hip Knit Wool Shop. I am so sorry for just always guessing. This is what I get for not preparing before I hit record. My son just decided to go to bed early, so I quickly grabbed all the things that I wanted to talk about. Anyways, back to the knitting. This is knit in Cascade 220, my favorite yarn. I purchased this yarn from actually a store in Saskatoon called Prairie Lily Knitting from Saskatoon. This is knit in the size 4, meaning it's supposed to fit up to 4 years old. We'll see how that goes. It probably will. This is extremely out of my comfort zone. I mentioned earlier that I was supposed to work on this last year. I was just so scared. I was so terrified of color work. I didn't have the courage to do it last year. I had just given birth. I guess that's my excuse. I had done enough last year. Really, my excuse was that I didn't understand how I would catch floats as a continental knitter. Lots of videos were doing, one hand was doing continental, the other was doing English, and I wasn't really into it. I wanted to do everything continental. Yes, there is a video out there, I will link it down below, that does continental, and for some reason last year my brain just didn't compute. My brain didn't want to do it. This year though, it finally understood it, and which is why we got this far. It's knit bottom up, so I've also never knit a sweater with a bottom up construction. So I will see and report back on how I feel about that. Is this the best color work you've ever seen? It won't be. Will this be proof of someone who tried hard and is finding the creative courage to try new things? Yes, it is. So at least I got that going for me. That's the Fishy Fish sweater. I am really enjoying it. I feel really smart doing it. So perhaps some of you out there can relate when you try a brand new crafting endeavor. I'm really proud. I don't have any acquisitions for this podcast episode. This is a huge win as someone who hangs out on Instagram far too much and gets easily influenced to buy more yarn or any notions. I have nada, nothing. I am pushing myself to just use all the yarn that I have hidden under my couch. My couch has like storage underneath, and I guess if someone came over to my house, they would say, "You don't have a lot of yarn. Are you sure you're a knitter?" It's because I hide it under my couch. So I do have like, I want to say at least 2 sweater quantities and like 2 vest quantities left in there, and I just want to finish it up because there are a bunch of other sweaters that I really want for fall 2026 and winter-ish 2026, 2027. Also, Knit City is coming to my city in September. I also want to make sure that I'm at a good spot with my stash so that I can fully enjoy Knit City in all its glory and everything that it means for my wallet. So the next few podcast episodes might just have like somewhat boring projects, but I'm using this as a way for accountability that I actually focus on my stash and really making sure that it goes down so that future me would be happy and won't be guilty when I'm working on brand new projects or purchasing new yarns and notions. So that is me blabbing on about what I've finished. I was just thinking, like, do I want to talk about my Olga again? No, that I have said everything I've needed to say about the Olga. So yeah, so no acquisitions for this episode, which brings us to the end. Thank you so much for hanging around with me. I hope that whatever you're working on is going well, or at least that it's bringing you the joy and the creative expression that you need in this moment. And I will see you in the next one. Wow, that sounded really deep. Like I sounded like I was like a mature and wise creative, but now I've ruined it as well by making a comment about myself. Okay, that's enough. Good night, everyone. See you later. See you in the next one. Good luck. Have great tension. All that stuff. Check your gauge swatch, even if you don't feel like it. Even though I didn't. I want you to do it. Okay, bye.